what's up everybody? Welcome to the Rules of Engagement. As always, I'll be your host, Nick, axslav, ranish, as we explore tactics and strategies using the game of Starcraft 2. Today we're going to take a look at a couple of games from the WCS America Challenger Division, round 1 of the bracket. We're going to first take a look at 2 games between Theognis and Jaedong. Then we're going to move on to a third game between Major and Xenocider. Talking about, macro, TvZ, some just general good Terran play, and of course, how to properly contain and choke out your opponent in TvT. After these 3 segments, we're going to go into the viewer Q&A. So submit any questions you have to me on Twitter at @axslav or in the YouTube comments, www.youtube.com/official. MLGSC2, find any of the recent Rules of Engagement videos, and just put a question in those, and I'll find them and answer them at the end of the show. So, first topic, macro TvZ versus Roach Hydra in Theognis versus Jaedong. We're going to talk about scouting tricks you can use as a Terran player. From a Zerg perspective, how to properly play Roach Hydra versus Terran, a couple simple things to always have in your mind about how you approach it. And then also, keeping it simple. When you should just not do crazy tactics and keep your play simple to win the game. So, we're going to jump into the replay at 4 minutes into the game. We're going to take a look at this through Theognis' point of view. And the one thing I want to talk about is a scouting tip just with your first worker. So one thing, as soon as the Queens and the Zerglings come out, if you're not going Reaper opening, if you're going Command Center first, you're going to have a very difficult time getting into the Zerg base, right? So you won't really be able to see what they're doing in their main base. But keeping track of the times at which they take their expansions is a great way to let you know what's going on in their main base. Say, okay, there's no third base at 540. It's either 2 base layer, or he's doing some aggression, like a Roach baiting attack or something like that. And then, of course, he runs back. He's going to then circle around, head back in. Didn't quite get the confirmation, but he knew at 545 there's no third base. He knows it's Daybreak. 2-hatch layer attacks aren't very common in Daybreak. So he's thinking, okay, no third base at about the 6-minute mark. There's probably something funny going on, and that's why he's getting this Marauder, right? And then, of course, he had to run from the Roaches as well. So now he sees it for sure, but the Marauder was already halfway done before he even saw those Roaches. And a good part of the reason why he knew an attack like this could be likely is just seeing the lack of expansion. So often you can tell what's going on just by seeing their expansion timing. It'll tell you what's going on in the main base. This would have been a great defense. Unfortunately, he didn't pull Linus out of the bunker before the bunker went down, so he lost some of his damage output. Still going forward, he's not going to lose too much. Taking some SCV losses a decent amount. And it's going to be roughly an even game after this attack because, of course, Jaedong is doing a decent amount of damage. You can see here he's got 8 worker kills. He's killing some depots. He's killed some units. But then also, Theognis has triple orbitals, and Jaedong had to build those units early and disrupt his own economy to go on the attack. So, taking stock of things, Jaedong's up by 11 workers. Of course, he'll probably extend that lead a little bit, but then he can't extend it too much until it digs that third hatchery. So, a relatively even game going forward. And now, from Jaedong's perspective, he's going to follow this up with a range attack. So, you can see he's going for Roach Hydra, right? And one thing that's very important about Roach Hydra, let's fast forward this a little bit, is both players are going to macro up and just kind of get their infrastructure going on. One thing that's very important, if you're a Zerg player and you're going Roach Hydra versus Terran, to keep in mind, is that it's almost as similar to PvT as far as so you Protoss guys out there, this applies to you as well. If your opponent has Marines, Marauders, Medivacs, right? Nothing without area of effect damage, nothing without the high-tech support units is ever going to be cost efficient versus Marine Marauder. So Roach Hydra is not going to match Marine Marauder, but of course early on in the game, because Zerg has all these hatcheries, a lover mechanic, you can greatly outproduce Marine Marauder. So you can have a lot more Roach Hydras than they have Marine Marauder as far as value goes, just because of your superior production. So you either have to do something with your superior production before both people max out, and then of course, even though it took them longer to max out, they're going to have a much better army. You either have to use that superior production, or you need to attack for your powerful units. So right here, it's almost 14 minutes. There's still no Hive Tech for Vipers. There's still no Infestation Pit even. Just now starting it. So this puts Jaedong in a tough situation where it's like a Protoss who built a whole bunch of gateway units, doesn't have Storm Up and doesn't have Colossi. They have to make an engagement happen. They have to maybe at least deny Terran's third base or do something to prevent the Terran from getting a large bio army because they don't have that powerful high-tech AoE. So Jaedong, of course, is on the spot where he needs to put on pressure. He needs to attack. He needs to at least delay the tier in third base to be an even game. Of course, it's not like you can't win from behind, but to be even, he wants to do some damage to his third base. So right here is actually really cool because he knows he needs to attack. Theognis, of course, with his draw play, he's noticed the timing of the hive. So he knows that all he has to do is defend and he'll be a little ahead. And so he's positioning his buildings here in a very defensive posture, of course, bunker as well. Hydras take that down quickly. But one thing to notice is look at the way Theognis controls his units. And as far as the way this battle is actually going to happen, there's one important geographical factor in this engagement. And what that important factor is this choke right here, right? The fact is, either player, units inside this choke, if Terran units get there, the Zerg player can have a great concave over here, and it's all going to, attack down that way. If the Zerg puts their units there, then Terran can do the same thing with a great concave down here. So either way, neither player wants to go through that choke point. Now, what Theognis knows is, okay, I have some siege tanks. I've been adding a few siege tanks in my composition. So once those siege tanks come up here, I can just force them back, or I'll have to charge through the choke and I'll win. But in the short term, I need to make sure my orbital doesn't get sniped. So what he's gonna do, focus macro-wise, is make sure the orbital doesn't get sniped. I may have to move out and take a bad fight. But then once I get a tank set up, once I know I have enough repair that the orbital's not gonna go down, then he's gonna want to back up again and force the Zerg to come right into that kill zone. So it's very important to instantly recognize, depending on the setup, where there's a potential kill zone that both players need to avoid. In this situation, it's that exact spot right there. So going into the game, we can see this is what the Theognis is going to do. His tanks are coming down, right? But he doesn't want to just have his units all hang back here right now, because if he did so, then what would happen is in fact orbital gets sniped. So actually, let's just actually watch this with the keeping in mind this kill zone to see who has to go through there or not. So we can see here, right now Theognis was going through there because he had to protect the orbital. Then as soon as the tanks get set up, he backs up, forces Jaedong to go through there, and Jaedong says, I can't do that. And he backs away, and that's how the perfect defense was formed, right? With a two-step process. Theognis pushed forward a bit so the orbital didn't die. Then as soon as he knew the orbital was going to survive, backed up, forced Jaedong into that spot, and took that battle convincingly. So the next thing we're going to talk about is now Theognis is ahead, right? Because that technique that the attack Jaedong didn't really work. The third is still alive. Economy is still great for both players, but if it's great for both players, and the Terran, of course, has more cost-efficient units because the Zerg lacks attack, it's going to favor Terran. Going forward here, now Theognis is in this position. Okay, I'm ahead. If I'm let's say, even in economy, right? I'm on 4 bases now. Assuming I can defend my 4th base, I'll be on 4 bases. My opponent is on 4 bases. Theognis knows that. He's been in the draw play to keep tabs of his opponent. Of course, we can look at his vision. He doesn't see this base, but he has to assume the Zerg has it. And he had to drop this, go through here shortly. So, 4 base versus 4 base. That means, if anything, I have better economy. Even if I'm down by a few workers, like in this case, with the 3 mules I have, there's no way he has more economy. So if we're even in economy, and I have Marine Marauder Medevac versus Roach Hydra, I'll be more cost efficient. How can I lose this game? I have more cost efficient combination, I'm even army. Well, the one thing you don't want to do is, yes, drops are amazing against Roach Hydra, right? Drops can be absolutely amazing versus Roach Hydra. You see a lot of Terrans tear apart Zergs with Illusion versus Moonglade and stuff, but if you're ever winning in the game, if you have even or greater economy and your composition is more cost efficient, just keep it simple. Fancy drops, multi-prong attacks, yes, those can be great. And note that's a great way to get an advantage or to make a comeback. But if you're already ahead of your opponent, like Theognis is here versus Jaedong, doing those fancy tactics is a great way to lose your advantage. I'm sure you guys have all seen games where Terran's 20, 30 feet ahead, and then they do like all these 4, 5, 6 drops, and then, like they kill 1 hatchery and lose 6 medevacs of guys, and all of a sudden, the Zerg's being able to transition to Ultra Infestor or something crazy, Broodlords to back up this army, or just a high Infestor count. And the game just collapses for a Terran player because those fancy multi-pronged drop things, there's a risk factor. If you mess up your control, you don't retreat your drop fast enough, you take bad fights, you can all of a sudden fall behind. So if you're ahead like this, keep it simple. And this decision from Theognis saying, okay, I'm ahead in macro, more cost-efficient combination, just focus on keeping unit trades going on. And with even economy, if the unit trades are going to be in my favor, he's eventually going to die to the war of attrition. So check this out. Right now we can look at unit resources lost is at basically dead even. In fact, Theognis has been 100 behind in resources lost, and a lot of that was because of all the drops he's tried, and Jaedong's just been slaughtering him. So going forward, right, we'll just keep an eye on this, actually, not look at the production or anything. And both players have even economy. All Theognis has to do is just keep forcing trades, because his composition is being more cost efficient, and over time, Jaedong, I mean, in a short run with Larva, maybe he can keep up the production, but in the long run, he'll run out of money. So actually, I mean, these fights aren't super important, just some cool tactics, but the main thing is understanding that in this exact position, all Theognis has to do is keep trading, keep trading, keep trading. His army is more cost efficient than Jaedong's, right? And because he's more cost efficient, as long as he keeps trading, Jaedong will eventually starve out. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But Theognis just keeps it simple, keeps direct confrontations. Jaedong hangs with him for a little while because of the greater production advantage of Zerg. But as long as Theognis maintains his 4 bases, as these trades keep happening, we can see the situation where now he's 3,000 more efficient than Jaedong. Jaedong's supply starts to crumble, and all of a sudden Theognis is about 30 food ahead, and now all of a sudden he's 60 food ahead, and now the game's over. Right? I mean, he's 50 food ahead, and the GG comes in about 10 seconds. We'll stop it there. Very important. Game deciding decision from Theognis, not to do anything crazy. It's that simple. If you're ahead in macro or even, and your army is more cost efficient, just make those trades as long as your position isn't terrible. You don't have to outplay your opponent. You just have to grind him into the dust. Of course, you get into this position by outplaying them earlier, which we saw happen when he defended a third, but Jaedong committed himself to taking out with the build he chose. And then he got ahead, and if you're ahead, just grind your opponent down to the dust. You don't have to be super fancy about it, and that's how you win the game. So a quick recap. Use some cheap scouts, especially as a Terran player. Hide an SCV by your opponent's third base. Sneak it into the natural later on. These type of tips and tricks, it was a scouting SCV that you weren't going to really use to mine anyway. You can kind of get a good feel what the Zerg or Protoss is doing just by the speed at which they take their natural, their third, their fourth base, etc. Then, of course, also the Zerg player, or actually any race, be sure to tech. Unless you want to commit yourself to denying your opponent expansion, make sure you're not being out-teched by them. So, get those Infestors, get those Psystorms, get those Colossi, get the Medivacs, get Stim, get upgrades for Terran, transition to Widowmine's tanks if you're playing versus Zerg and you want to incorporate those. Whatever tech you want for that matchup, make sure to get it at a timely rate so you don't fall behind your opponent. And then lastly, if you're ahead, keep your tactics simple. Don't do anything crazy if you're ahead. If you need to catch up or you think you can do a cool draw play to get advantage, go ahead and do so, but recognize there's always a risk. Don't use risky tactics if you're ahead and you don't need to. All you need to do to win is just kill your opponent. Yes, maybe the way Theognis played the last 5 minutes of the game resulted in more Marines dying than if he tried some flashy cool move. He lost a bunch of units. But if you know you can outproduce your opponent and you can trade more efficiently, why not just make it a war attrition? Your Marines won't like it, but you will get the win, and that's the most important thing at the end of the day. So, wraps up analysis on our first segment. Take a short break and be right on to our second segment of the day.